This is Dr. Tamia Guest with Rejuvenating Chiropractic.
This is Nara Reed with Modified Nutrition Health Coach.
This is Karen Marcel with June Street Barbershop.
This is Tiffany Marcel with Marcel Luxury Realty, and you're listening to Boss Talk Radio.
The U.S. government has given billions of dollars to businesses in an effort to curb the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The government will begin to pursue recouping these funds in 2021. Aggressive penalties will be imposed on companies that do not follow regulations and guidelines for proper use of these funds. Criminal charges are already being levied on fraudulent use. Don't suffer again. Get a customized business operations success suite from Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services for your company today. Boss packages include entity formation, payroll, accounting and bookkeeping, tax planning, tax filings, and quarterly strategy sessions to minimize your tax liability, increase efficiency, and maximize your profits. Make your appointment today at elite8financial.com. Get the guidance, tools, and protection your business needs now. Get Boss. Get behind the shield.
Finding your brand space in this ever-changing economy can be challenging to new and established businesses. Graphic Line Media can help launch your business's brand potential to unknown places with creative revisioning that relentlessly presses the competition. From graphic design, web, print, apparel, media, and social, we have something designed to grow your business. Don't hesitate. Rule your space. Visit Graphic Line Media at graphiclinemedia.com or join our Facebook page at Graphic Line Media to get special discounts and offers.
Welcome to Boss Talk Radio, the #1 online business and entrepreneurial talk show, brought to you by Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services. Here's your host, the Texas tax expert, George Dandridge.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Boss Talk Radio. We have an exciting episode lined up for you here today. So, of course, as usual, rule number 1, grab your pen, your paper, your S notes, or whatever it is you do to capture information and be able to refer back to later, because we have a very exciting guest for you tonight. Step 2, share the video. If you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or another platform via video, go ahead and give StreamYard permission to use your name so that when you make comments, etc., we can shout you out. Be sure to comment where you're tuning in from so we can give you your props as you do that and everything. And if you're watching the replay, you can go ahead and skip over about a minute or so. Be sure to put hashtag replay. And if you're listening to the playback on any of your favorite podcast stations, thank you for tuning in. We love to have you, and we're going to take you on a bit of a journey. So right from the door, no, you do not have your days of the week mixed up. It's not Friday. Don't oversleep tomorrow just because you saw Boss Talk Radio today. This is actually a very special episode because, as you know, what we do here is make adjustments, not excuses. And our very special guest today has a very, very busy schedule. We're glad to lock him down for this hour or so to share with you guys. I've been following this young man for a little over a year now, and I'm just blown away at the commitment to excellence that he has in getting it done. He doesn't make excuses, and then also his ability to, or his willingness, I won't say ability, the willingness that he has to always pour back into people. But I guess that's God's gift from him and to him and through him, because he educates all over the country. You've seen him in Forbes, you've seen him in Entrepreneur, you've seen him in Black Enterprise, and now you're going to see him on Boss Talk Radio. Welcome, everybody, Mr. Jay Veal.
Hey, how's it going?
How you doing today, sir?
Pretty good, sir. How's it going? Thanks for having me up here. Appreciate that.
Everything is amazing. We're so excited to have you on the show. And before we really get into this thing, go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about your background and what it is you do.
Yeah, for sure. So, hey, everybody. My name is Jay Veal. I'm based in the Atlanta and Dallas area, actually currently in Dallas right now. My original background was in the IT and tech space, and then I migrated over into the education space in 2008. I am a proud graduate of Townview Science Engineering Magnet High School here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I went back to go teach there when I migrated into the education space from the tech industry. And I taught a very unique class called Fast Track Mathematics, which is basically teaching 3 years of mathematics, 3 years of pre-AP math to freshmen in one calendar academic year. I was really successful with that, where 100% of my students got perfect scores on the state exam, which was a unique thing back then, and kind of started to pave my way into education. I taught in the school system for about 4.5 years in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and Dallas-Fort Worth, and not Dallas-Fort Worth, but DISD, Duncanville District, Uplift Education, charter school system, and then was able to also become a math instructional coach at Adamson High School and DISD, and then a district level administrator over 7 schools as a STEM instructional coach in DeSoto District. Once I got, kind of complete with that, went to become a math interventionist, and then an adjunct professor of mathematics at a university for 4.5 years. And so I noticed back in the middle of 2015, when I started my tutoring brand, that there was not great support for students of color inside the classroom, and support needed outside the classroom for Black and Brown students. And I decided to instantiate what is now Inc. Education, but when I started back then was called Inc. Tutoring. And we tutor students from kindergarten to the doctorate level in STEM subjects, test preps, English reading, writing, and foreign languages. We have impacted over 11,000 students plus now, with 105 people on the team nationwide between Dallas, Fort Worth, Chicago, DC, Austin, and Atlanta. We're the number one African-American owned private education and tutoring company in the United States, and almost $1 million brand. We have impacted students in different pathways with a holistic approach to tutoring and education that really starts with building relationships deep with families, parents, and students, including stakeholders into our process, to include parents, teachers, counselors, students, and our team, to make sure that everybody's on one page academically. We mentor our students and provide back-end support at the end of the day, which has contributed to what we now have as a 95% success rate of Black and Brown students getting A's and B's in about 50 subjects nationwide. During the pandemic last year at this point, I was sitting around, I was like, what else can we do to impact Black and Brown students outside of Inc. Education, which at this point, in addition to the tutoring and the test prep, we also do academic coaching and counseling. We do mentoring services, resume review writing, literature reviews, professional development, and workshops. I noticed that I can do something else. And so I decided to instantiate a edtech nonprofit called Black Tutors of Social Media, which is a platform built for Black-owned tutoring companies on the front end to provide their services at large through a filter reactive system. And on the back end is a 6-program nonprofit for entrepreneurship programs, financial literacy programs, tutoring services, mentorship programs, travel programs, and also college tours. So between Inc. Education and Black Tutors of Social Media right now, we're able to make the biggest impact that we can, which, like you said before, that has been making national headlines all throughout. So that's kind of a snippet of what I do. I'm a big proponent of financial literacy as well. So I have another brand that instantiates education, business, and credit consulting, and a couple other things. So it's great. It's a great time to impact students during the pandemic, and we want to see kind of what's next. So.
there's 24 hours in a day, and clearly you're making the most of all of them. And
they always say,
I want to, before we get into the education piece, I want to talk a little bit about, because there's somebody sitting there right now saying, how in the world can he do all of that, at such a young age and everything? So Here's the question. Talk to us about building your team and how you were able to communicate your vision and inspire others to come on board.
Man, great question. So one cool thing I'll mention, me and the COO of the organization, his name is Clinton Mechi. It's funny that we have a similar background when it comes to schooling, right? I was a freshman in high school at 12 years old, so I was fairly young. And then I graduated high school at 16, just like he did. He got his master's, I believe, in cardiovascular physiology. I had my undergrad in information systems with a minor in mathematics, and then my master's in education and curriculum instruction mathematics. And so when I looked at trying to build a team over a course of time, I started out with me by myself, literally grassroots, bootstrap, no venture capital, no cash infusion, just my own pockets, and really wanted to make a change for education. So I started knocking door to door. And noticed after about a year, I had the pleasure of meeting at that time the senior producer for Steve Harvey's show and senior producer for Tom Joyner Morning Show, and was able to have an exchange, a barter exchange, if you will, for exchanging the tutoring services at that time. And that was how I got my first rendition into Black Enterprise, which after that, there was multiple different moments where I was in the magazine before I was able to be a contributing writer for the magazine on education and financial literacy. But when I was building my team after that, we kind of got popular after that first year. And so I noticed that I needed some help. And the goal was, how can I find the right people to get on the right bus to drive the same direction, right, at the same speed? And so when you're looking at trying to build a company, you have to see, can people take what you have and make it not a you thing, but make it an our thing, right? And when those individuals are joining your team, they have to have some of the same visions. And so when I was building, of course, he's now the COO. When he came on board, he started tutoring with us, right? And then became a business manager after that, became a regional manager, then eventually became COO within the past year and a half. And so when I was looking for the right people, they had to, one, be entrepreneurial minded, right? They had to have an entrepreneurial mindset. They had to really be engaged and wanting to see students succeed and wanting to see Black and brown people, really all students, but specifically Black and brown students, get to where they need to go, and really serve as a semi-mentor or a big brother and big sister to the students out there. So they had to have a passion for education and to just see young kids succeed, right? Our team is millennial driven and millennial based. So we're younger to the students of today. We're an organization full of Generation Ys, right? So Generation Z, which is out here right now, looks up to us as the pathway to success, right? Like, hey, on our team, we have physicians, we have instructional coaches, educators, med school students, pharmacists, investment bankers from Goldman Sachs, Barclays. I mean, the list goes on. Engineers, IT consultants. I mean, they're so talented. And I wanted to have an organization that people could come and look to and say, wow, these guys have something really going on. They've achieved a lot young. They are top in their industry. They are passionate about education. They want to see other individuals succeed. They want to give, in most cases, without any expectation of anything in return. And they want to see everybody win, right? So from the student perspective to our internal teams. And I built a culture, or we built a culture rather, around that situation and that environment, right? Clint will tell you, or my executive staff will tell you, I never come into a meeting saying I or this is my company or I did this, right? It's always we did this. This is our company. We're going to move in these directions. And I always have input from the team on where we're going and how we're going to get there in most cases, right? So I think, the general grand scheme of things is really understanding that this is not my company, right? This is not Jay's company. This is everybody's company. This is I don't care about going down and scrubbing the floors and getting a toothbrush and doing that like we used to do when I was in the Navy. Like it's just one of those things where the CEO is just as in the grime, right, as the consultants. And nobody's diamond shines brighter than the other. And so we built a culture around that. And I'll say this too, our team we don't recruit individuals for our team through a career builder or a Indeed or any outside platform. What we have instantiated within our culture is the fact that we don't bring anybody in from the outside normally, right? It's recommendations from our executive team and our regional managers that really create the bulk of who is on our current team right now and who is going to be coming into our team. And so the excellence that we've provided, the results that we've delivered nationally for students everywhere has given a culture around people wanting to join our team. We have a low attrition rate, and there's multiple different folks that want to come into our brand. Email is always about, hey, I want to join the Inc. team. I want to join the Inc. team, but we're strategic on who we bring on board. So internal recommendations is always a plus because we know what we're looking for. So the executives and the regional managers are always saying, hey, I know these particular people in my network that would be a great fit. And because of the internal referrals, we built the team that we have now, which is a 13-time award-winning team.
That's amazing. That's amazing, Jay. And I wanted to make sure this part didn't get overlooked. This one aspect that I get so frustrated with in the day-to-day of talking to business owners that contact me regarding positioning themselves for funding, etc. You said, out of my own pocket, I started this vision, and it was about the passion, not about the income. And correct me if I'm wrong, you bartered opportunities early on just so you'd have an opportunity because you knew you had something valuable, but you needed it to be seen by others. So you were willing to barter that. So it wasn't about the sale, it was about the outcome. And I need everybody to get that and just suck that in for a minute, because your own sweat equity, your own, for lack of better words, your own investment into yourself, your brand, your business will always bleed and shine through and attract others. But if you're, constantly just looking for the sale, not the relationships, and constantly looking for the opportunity for people to pour into you without you, pouring into yourself first and foremost, but secondly, be willing to pour out your gift in those early stages, it probably won't happen for you. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to get into the state of education in America and some of the solutions that Jay knows will solve the problem. We'll be back right after this.
Sure.
We could not continue to do our filing of our taxes in the traditional sense that we've been doing for so many years. So we opted to go ahead and take the advice from one of our friends that went ahead and referred us. And since he referred us, we said, we decided let's go ahead and check Elite 8 out, and we're glad we did. They were extremely very thorough, so that's part of the excitement that we really enjoyed with Elite 8. So some of the parts of the values that we really enjoyed was that they were, beyond the fact that they were trustworthy, very thorough, extremely responsive, and the fact that we could do things online just the same that we were able to do in the traditional sense.
Get behind the shield.
Welcome back to Boss Talk Radio. We're in the building with Jay Veal, talking about the state of education in America. He's built a phenomenal company that is right at $1 million in sales. You've seen him in many different popular publications, from Black Enterprise to Forbes. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Jay Veal. How you doing, sir?
Yes, sir. I'm doing pretty good, man. Loving it out here, man. Loving it. I love the platform, so I appreciate it once again.
So I have this question for you. Your company, your services were uniquely positioned for a time like COVID. Like, you didn't have to really turn the corner or whatever. You were uniquely positioned for that. Where did that vision come from? Was it just like, okay, here's the next level and this is how I can impact more people? Or where did that vision come from?
Yeah, so we started the organization in the middle of 2015. And back then, we still had internet that was prevalent, right? Like, online spaces were still prevalent. It wasn't at the scale that it is now, where we have the TikToks of the world, right? The Clubhouses of the world and things like that, right? We had a vision to get the services out, and I figured that, at that time, it was really building the social capital needed to get the company out and to really show that we can do this, right, on foot, right, or physically at people's houses, was just as important as can we provide the services online as well if need be, right? So at that time in 2015, we're 5.5 years in now. So at that time in 2015, it was a thought process of, we want the physical connection, because Black and brown students and minority students in general need to have a couple of things when they're getting educated, right? One, to learn the best, they have to you have to build a relationship with them. You really have to get to know them. You have to care about them as a person before you care about their education, right? You also have to ensure that you're looking out for the best for them and mentoring them. And in order to do all those things combined, we have to see each other on a day-to-day basis or a time-to-time basis, right? When we have our sessions. And so, when the kid comes in, we can show our facial expressions. We can be excited. We can do all these things. And that was needed back then, right? But I wanted to have an online component that was sitting there as time went on. So when we first started, we had probably, I would say, maybe 20% of our sessions already back then in 15 were already online. As time kind of progressed, we had a little bit more increase in the online sessions, but it wasn't to the capacity of now, where I would say at least until the pandemic dies down, we have 85% of our sessions, if not 90% of our sessions now, are online. So when COVID happened, it wasn't like we were scrambling all over the place. Like, man, what are we going to do? I don't know. Like, how is this happening? It wasn't like my executive team was like, Jay, what's next? It was like, oh, okay, we woke up, COVID happened. It's not a good thing because a lot of people died, right? There was a lot of deaths and tragedy that happened. But on the educational sector, I was just like, okay, y'all, we just need to convert what we're doing a little bit more to the online space. Just make sure that, the students that we're serving and the families that we're serving, if they still want us to go directly to the home, that we have the proper PPE. We're wearing the N95s. We're getting everything done, and where everybody's being safe. And there's no big issue there, right? Or, if the family doesn't feel secured and feel comfortable doing that, or the tutor doesn't feel comfortable doing that, then we'll go ahead and build an alliance with the family and say, look, we still want to tutor your kid. I know y'all don't want to leave us. Y'all don't want to leave our company, but we can still give you the same level of service online that we can give you directly face-to-face in person at your house, right? And from our data, what's the word I'm looking for? our differentiation in percentage of performance online to in person is literally less than 1%. So you're going to get the same results that you would get online than you would get if I was sitting with you face to face, because I can still share my screen, right? I can still share my love for you as a student, right? I can still share my passion. I can get the content to you however I need to. So it wasn't really a big change. We've always been prepared for this. I would say we're probably one of the few tutoring companies that made sure that we had our guns ready for the past 5 years anyway. If something like this did happen, a lot of the tutoring centers kind of fell down a little bit, right? So funny thing happened. There was people from Sylvan Learning Centers. There was folks from Tutor Doctor Centers and other tutoring centers that were asking us, right, little old us back then, right, about advice on what to do, what made us successful, how are we making our students tutor online, and all these things that the little man on the show or the little company on the show, now the big players are asking us for advice on what to do. But the funny thing is we have such a niche market and such an approach that nobody can duplicate because they can't duplicate our people, that it's something that's always unique to our company. Like you said before, I don't mind sharing my advice. I didn't have a mentor. I couldn't ask nobody about how to build a company or a tutoring company in education. Like I was, to be quite frank, I was a little salty about that because I didn't have no mentor. So people that look at my story and look at my vision, I didn't have no mentor. It's probably hard to believe, but I really built this thing from the mud. And now that we're here, I continue to give back by those that want to start tutoring companies at this level or even greater, just by the advice that I'm able to give them on how to start, build the companies and do operations and everything else that's needed to build a successful company. So that's kind of where we're at.
I love the part about when the big fish come turn around like, wait a minute, we missed the boat here. He's got something over. Let's go talk to him. So let's get into the ugly. Now that everybody has a sense of who you are and the many things that you've accomplished, let's get into the ugly side of education in America.
Yeah.
Why do you believe, definitely pre-COVID, why do you believe there was such a vast discrepancy in levels of education, specifically for inner city Black and brown kids? And do you feel like the education system overall in America, disparities aside, is antiquated?
Man, so much to unpack there. So I would say this: education for Black and brown students hasn't been at an equal playing field for pretty much forever. If you really look at things, you have zonings that happen in cities, right? Where students are allocated to different schools and school districts based on everything from zip code to, personal data, where they live, what they do, the income they make. All these things are part of zoning processes, right? So the city is kind of segregated, even here in Dallas-Fort Worth area, right? If you're, north of 30, or north of downtown, or you're south of downtown, or south of 30 or 35, right? That railroad that they used to talk about, I'm not from Dallas, but I heard about that whole situation with the railroad. And so when you're going north or south, you experience different things, right? And I believe that we have always had a disadvantage because we didn't have the same resources, right, that other school districts or people may have had, to where their education capacity may have been at a higher level. But I kind of want to park there, like you said earlier in the podcast or in this radio show, that you don't make the excuses, right? You have to move forward and kind of get things done. Prime example with Townview, right? Townview Magnet Center is one of the top magnet schools in the United States. It's in the hood, right? It's in South Dallas, right below the downtown area off of 35 and 8th Street. But the school outperforms other schools that are in Highland Park ISD, that are in Prosper ISD, Frisco, McKinney, Allen, Plano, all of those districts in this particular area, they outperform them. And I'm talking about they outperform schools nationwide, right? But it's in the hood, and it's a school full of mostly minority students that are Black and brown. And so when we talk about performance of students and, oh, I want to send my kid to a top district, well, let's hold up for a minute. Just because you live in Plano, or just because you live far up north, doesn't mean you're going to get a better quality education all the time. What really matters is who's in front of the kids in the classroom. I don't care if you in the hood. I don't care if you in the elite. I don't care if you got a $10 million home. I don't care if you got a $50,000 home. What really matters, though, is that when you step into the classroom and that educator has fallen in love, right? And I always say this, there's a lot of educators who are in the classroom who are just there. They teach, but they haven't fallen in love with the craft and in love with the content, right? I've fallen in love with mathematics. Like if it was a woman, it would be my girlfriend 24/7. You know what I'm saying? So when you don't fall in love with the craft, right, that's what drives success for the students in the classroom. And you can relate the content from an experiential standpoint, and they're able to take what's inside of this room, inside of this box, and apply it outside to where now they can become positive contributors of society, right? And do great things as Black and brown students. So I say all that to say, education is at a standstill and a standpoint where it's already been broken. System's already been broken. Now it's decapitated because of COVID. Kids have not had a chance to have quality education and tutoring from March of last year to today. It's February 4th. Almost a whole year they've been decapitated. And now schools are trying to figure out, what in the world can I do? What in the world can we do to make sure that kids are getting what they need? I'll say this, there's a district right now that's by Houston that they were supposed to do spring exams, right? After the break, they normally do, they do finals and all that good stuff, and they have those exams. They literally stopped exams because the kids are not prepared, right? So they had to come back and say, we want our kids to learn more content because they don't know the test material. And that's a sad thing, right? There's other districts in Houston that were about to get shut down, or other schools, that were about to get shut down out of Houston, right? Here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, well, really in Texas, they're supposed to be taking STAR this year, right? They're taking STAR, but it's not going to be counted by the TEA for their next grade level movement, but they still got to take it, right? So, and then on top of that, what else happened recently, right? They took the SAT 2 subject test out of being taken, right? And the essay that the SAT has as well. They took that out. What happened prior to that? Well, the SAT and the ACT were as being taken out of schools for entrance, and thousands of schools at this point. California, the University of California system decided to have a court-appointed order by the judge is saying, look, we're not going to have our students taking any of them, period, forever. Okay. We just want to use another system to get that done. So right now, the state of education, there's a lot going on with it, right? We have a new Secretary of Education at this point, right? DeVos just stepped down, thank God. And we have to figure out now, what is the new guy going to do, right? We know that Biden's wife has a great background in education, right? As the woman, right? The first lady, but then a person appointed for Secretary of Education also has a background in education as well, right? So the question is, can it be fixed from this point forward? And what things are we going to instantiate to make sure that it gets fixed, right? Part of this issues is also the funding, right? If the government put the right amount of funding instead of having to have private entities like your Robert Smiths and Mackenzie Bezos, right? They've been putting a lot of money lately into HBCUs across the United States, right? To, in my opinion, to fulfill a gap, right? That shouldn't necessarily have to be filled, but just because COVID happened and now we have a Black movement, now you want to put money into our schools, right? Like, I'm not going to say that I'm not going to say that it's fake, and I don't want to cause a stir, but what I am saying is that it shouldn't have taken this long. It shouldn't have taken a pandemic to happen for you to say, oh, we want to push $500 million or $50 million into Morehouse or Morris Brown or Prairie View A&M or whatever, when I still got clients at Prairie View A&M that when we're tutoring them, they still got internet issues. Mm-hmm. But you're saying you're utilizing money, right, to provide better programs, but you can't even get the internet fixed. Mm-hmm. This is what's going on in our school systems, in our schools and universities nationwide, and it needs to stop, right? So with all that being said, we have issues in education right now. Kids are trying to catch up. Testing, standardized testing, is at a standstill, right? Nobody knows what's going to happen with that. But what I can tell you is, from an article that I just read about it, is that the College Board does have something on the way with an exam that probably will replace the SAT and or the ACT. They don't know what it's going to be called. And quite frankly, I think it's going to be a little better suited for the whole student from a holistic perspective, but it's still going to have some sort of financial component model to it, I'm pretty sure, right? Right now, it's kind of a money grab, right? People are taking the SAT and the ACT, but what does it really prove, right? The tests right now are already racially biased. They're economically biased. There's so many things that are happening with it, right?
Well, I was going to ask you about when you mentioned earlier, when you were talking about the school in Dallas, Dallas proper, that was outperforming some of the metro, outer metro schools that are ranked, pretty high in the nation or what have you. One of the things you mentioned was being able to convey experiences to what's being taught to and falling in love with that. Do you think that the standardized test and whatnot is really even a fair assessment of talent and or even a fair assessment of material taught or otherwise learned? Because what I've seen in my association with education throughout many years is that more often than not, it's not that a student didn't get it. It was that it was not properly conveyed to where that particular student could get it because it was not relative. Even for myself, I went through, the earlier parts of school with such absolute boredom, making straight A's, that at one point I just tuned out. And then the next thing I knew, I missed something. And so when it came time for algebra, I struggled until a college level, and a college professor made this thing real simple. The A, B, Y, X, and everything. He just made it money. And all of it, I just got it. Just like that, I just got it. It's like, wow.
Right? I mean, I'll say this. One, the STAR test is a basic level exam, right? It literally tests the basic level. When I came from Arizona, I did 3 years of high school in Arizona and came to Townview in my last year of high school, which is kind of unheard of. And we weren't required back then. It was a TOS test back then. Then it went to TAX. Then it went to STAR. And so I was taught the curriculum correctly for me to be able to then come to Texas, take their test, not mine in Arizona because there was none, but take their test and get, back then it was called academic recognition, get academic recognition on every particular part of the exam and outperform the students in Texas. Like, y'all, this is your own test. How can I come from another state and outperform you? And I didn't have to worry about taking the test back then, right? So that out by itself negates the fact of really needing an exam. The ACT is tested and based off the curriculum that you learn in school, which is a better advantage than the SAT, which is more abstract and it tests theory, right? So from that being said, it's like, hey, 2x plus 6 equals 10, right? I subtract 6 on both sides, divide by 2, and I get the answer x equals 2, right? That's the ACT approach. But the difference between that and the SAT approach is, right, 2x plus 6 equals 10. What does 4x plus 12 equal? Well, it equals 20 because you just double the equation. So you have to think differently and outside the box before you actually go into what you learned and go through logic. And so with that being said, the tests really are mind game-ish, right? They don't really provide an indicator on how you can perform in school. Hence, I just talked about this on another interview I did the other day. You can't test, you can be in Harvard and be in Yale, right? And do bad on the SAT or ACT. I'm just giving you an example, not saying that it will happen, but let's say you did good. Let's say you did good. Let's just start out there. Let's say you did good. Let's say you got a 1500 on the SAT. Let's say you got a 34 on the ACT. You got into Harvard, you got into Yale. You got there, first year out the gate, you experienced that you had to study, you had to you had to build relationships, you had to get study partners, study groups and all that. You notice that you're not used to this, and you totally flunk out first year out the gate because you were not prepared to be a real student. You were prepared academically to go over content and do well on an exam because you were trained. That was it. But somebody else that may have gotten admitted to Yale, Harvard, MIT, Stanford, or whatever, right? And you were an average student that got let in because they had to fulfill a number for probably whatever, right? For diversity and inclusion or something. And you outperformed other individuals who got in through a high standardized test score because you have the wherewithal and the passion and the drive to then get things done. Same reason why right now, what else is not taught? Well, 3 things are not taught in schools well, right? Black history, financial literacy, and entrepreneurship.
Are they taught in school at all? I thought they were pretty non-existent as far as school goes.
There's a little bit of financial literacy right now, still being taught in the middle school and high school scenarios, right? But it's very, very surface level, right? It's like, how do I balance a checkbook? How do I count coins? What does interest look like? What is simple interest? What does exponential or compound interest look like? And that's really about it. But it doesn't tell you the real thing, right? Like, how do you really invest in stocks and bonds? How do you go through mutual funds, right? How do you, at this point, how do you invest in things like Bitcoin, or how do you invest in other projects and things in real estate, right? How do you capitalize and leverage credit to make money and be able to make money while you sleep? Like, how do we teach our kids now those things so they can have a leg up on society, right? How do we teach them how to start businesses so they can cut down on their taxes, right? And be in position to hire people, which can also cut down on your taxes, right? So how do we give people jobs that can do what? Stimulate the economy. Like, all these kinds of things you learn as a business owner and an entrepreneur that benefits you now from being either, whether you're in white collar or blue collar workforce. Being an entrepreneur kind of makes you level up and do stuff that you ain't know what the hell you can do. I didn't know I was going to be an educator. I also didn't know that I was going to be an entrepreneur. What I did know is that I could tutor. I didn't know that I could teach well. I found that out and then ended up becoming one of the youngest educators in Dallas, Fort Worth, who was able to teach all the math in high school at every level of regular pre-AP and AP in only 4 years, right? So I just got good at the craft and believed in what I was doing and I fell in love with studying mathematics and just knowing how to create a pathway to get it to the students effectively, right? So those are the things that we run against in today's education system.
Let me ask you this question. In dealing with the education system, do you believe that the bigger problem, and I know it's not a 100% identity thing, but do you believe the bigger challenges lie with the system or the educators? Because it seems like a lot of times when I talk to, I won't say all, but most educators that I talk to have a passion for what they're doing. And I think that educators are probably some of the most special people on planet Earth.
Right.
And what it seems like the feedback that I get the most is that they're handcuffed. They don't have the freedom to do what they may know is a better way or a best practice, or have the autonomy to reach different students at where they are or whatever. Where's the disconnect? Where's the problem lie?
So that's a good question, man. I was talking to an educator yesterday, man. I was on another radio station. And he talked about he had a love for the classroom and the students, but he got out to do his own thing because of the system. So here's the thing about the system, right? One thing is this: there are great educators that are in the classroom and there are great, passionate people, right? Furthermore, though, what about the hiring? I'm about to present next week at a conference, and one of my slides and one of my parts talks about that 2% issue, that 2% problem, which is only 2% of male educators, I'm sorry, 2% of educators, period, in the United States are Black males, right? Programs like Call Me Mister, right, that was instantiated back at what's the Clemson University, right, a long time ago, right, has an initiative, right, to push out those Black male educators and really contribute to solving those problems. But we don't have the right representation, for one, in the school systems of educators who look like the students that are in the seats. Data point: 85% of the educators in the classroom currently today are Caucasian females. Over 55 to 60% of the seats that the students are sitting in today's classrooms are minority students. Another data point: most of the Caucasian females that are getting hired to be in the classrooms of today do not understand how to close the gap of relationships to Black and brown students and don't understand them. So the system is hiring the wrong people to teach the students in the classroom, right? So now we have a gap. We have 3 gaps. I talked about this in my TED Talks: opportunity gap, belief gap, and achievement gap. You can't close the achievement gap if you don't know what the hell the student is doing and who the student is. You can't close the belief gap if you're not pouring into the students and believing that they can achieve the most in school. You can't close the opportunity gap if you continue to use zoning as a platform to push students out that can go to better schools out just because of an address. You have to be, the system is built to keep certain students and demographics of people at a standstill in their life. Another data point: most educators that are not Black and brown, hence Caucasian, white, and or male. I mean, Caucasian, female or male at this point. They don't recommend our Black and brown students to take more AP and pre-AP courses, and over 24% of students who are Black and brown who see a Black and brown educator actually push more towards graduation rates because they see somebody who looks like them. But the funny thing is that so many educators that are not Black and brown always say, oh, well, you know, you can do well in this regular math class. You can do well in this regular English class because, you know, if you want to go out there and do kinesiology as a major, then that will work for you. But they never push the point of STEM, right? How can you be successful in a science, technology, engineering, or mathematics field? You have to be in a pre-AP or AP course and prepare yourself accordingly to get there. But we're not told that we can do that, right? When you get to college, what are the Black and brown students told? Oh, you're probably going to be a kinesiology major. You're not going to be a STEM major. So you don't necessarily need to do these things, right? You're going to become a basketball player, football player, go into entertainment or make music. But you're not going to be the next doctor who cures COVID. You're not going to be the next doctor who cures AIDS and HIV. You're not going to be the next doctor that makes the next biomedical contraption that is the next breakthrough. You know what I'm saying? So I say all that to say the system is the bigger culprit here, where we're talking about top-down levels from funding, right, in the administration, right? So hopefully the Biden administration has some solutions there to where funding can be pushed and matriculated down and funneled through the right pathways of the school systems nationwide. And we're talking about regular public school, charter schools, hell, and or private schools. But let's try and take what the private schools have as an advantage and push it into the public school scenario, right? And like I said before, Townview Science Engineering really outperforms even the private schools out there. So take the model that they have and that they use, funnel money down to put the better programming, because guess what? What would schools look like now? Magnet schools or schools with programs that automatically teach our kids financial literacy, that teach them how to build wealth, that teach them how to create a business. Even if you don't want to, at least you know how to do it, right? And all these different programs are funded coding, right? How to program and things like that, and how to be a developer. You can build a better pathway through the system if you know how to push the program through all the schools, fund them, get the right teachers in the classrooms who look like the students that are sitting there. And then from that point forward, zoning the right areas. And then where are we paying taxes, right? Let's make sure that all that tax money that's being used to build schools is also pushed to hire and to retain the right programming. That's how you fix it.
Well, up at a higher level, you brought up the zoning standpoint, and I think that it's understated just how systemic zoning really is, and having an honest conversation about what it was designed to do, because zoning correlates to funding. And so the zoning part of it, I mean, and for those of you that are new to this concept, it's basically about the tax dollars largely generated from property taxes, sales taxes, and things of that nature. And this is why you have this massive kind of gentrification thing that happens or whatever, because situations are zoned to benefit tax dollars going a certain way, and then certain schools benefit from that. And then you have an area that's just lower income as a demographic as a whole by zip code or whatever. And, then that funding doesn't make it there because not as much taxes are coming from that community, but that's because there's not as much money generated from that community to start with, and it's all by design. So we have to acknowledge that point and its real impact, and pretty much just do away with that when it comes to specifically education. But there's a whole lot of other things, because that's also tied into the banking practices, the ability to purchase, even though some of that is kind of dissipated or whatever, because it's harder to hardline it now, but it was a very real thing not that long ago, so we have to acknowledge that and acknowledge its impact. Another question I wanted to ask you, as it related to the education piece, though, is, it's okay to be just frank on the Boss Talk radio show. It's probably going to hurt some feelings, but you can speak to it to the extent that you're comfortable articulating it. We have a very unique time in America where probably 80% or better of households have subsequently become educators involuntarily. And right. Needless to say, many are not qualified. But my personal opinion, the one good thing that I think comes out of that is, even though I know it's challenging, especially for people who did not have the benefit of being able to continue work from home or still had to go out into the workplace or whatever the case may be, the one thing that I think positive came out of it, especially in the Black and brown communities, is it forced people who otherwise did not participate in their child's education to have to do so. What is your take on the role of the household in educational development? Because it seems like pre-COVID, there was this mindset, hey, I send you to school, you're supposed to learn, and there was no positive reinforcements or whatever at home unless the particular educator cared enough to reach out to the parents and say, hey, we're going to need you to get involved because they're struggling here, and here. We just can't get it done in a 6-7 hour day, with 28, 30 other students or whatever. What is that necessity in role play for the household, and how can the parent and educator, what type of system can be instituted to help them work more collegiately, understanding the obligations in both places, but have the student at the forefront?
I think right now you're right. Households are pushed into a situation where it's like, yo, I'm not an educator, period, but I got to become one at this point. We're in a situation where folks that are engineers and IT consultants and whatever they're doing, right? They're now like, man, I may not have taught this part. I may not have seen this particular content in a hot minute, but here I am, and I got to have patience with my kid. Furthermore, that contributes to the social emotional learning situation of the kid and the parent, because now the parent doesn't have the patience to teach the kid what an educator would have the patience to teach the kid, right? So now they're struggling, trying to get mad at the kid, like, damn, why you don't understand this, right? Like, why is it that you're having this issue, or why are you acting like this? They're now seeing what we go through as educators, right, in the classroom, right, on a day-to-day basis. And now they don't see, because now it's like, oh, why does my kid have this? Why is my kid failing? Why does my kid have this grade? Why is my kid doing X, Y, and Z? Well, ma'am or sir, the reason is because your kid is really acting up in class, and this is what they're doing, right? They're not turning in their homework. They're getting zeros because they didn't put any effort into it. And all the things you don't see because you're at work every day, now you're seeing them because you're having to be stuck with your kid at home. And now you're basically seeing the duplication of efforts of what we've already done in the classroom. We already done told you what we're seeing. You came back and was like, oh, nah, that's not my, how many people we have said, that's not my kid. My kid don't act like that. My kid don't do this. Well, guess what? You really now found out that your kid does do that. So now what you going to do, right? So we're in a situation where people can, so the parent, the student, and the educator have to become allies, right? Even in my tutoring company or my education company, we align ourselves to the educator in the classroom who is teaching the student that we already serve in the tutoring space. We don't overtake what they're doing. We just say, look, sir, ma'am, we're tutoring your student at this time in whatever content area. We want to know what the curriculum calendar and the curriculum map looks like so we can align ourselves with your students, with what you're doing with your student, and accelerate them where they need to go. If you can send reviews or quizzes for the quizzes or tests or things of that nature to us, then we'll go ahead and make things happen for them on our side. And you ain't got to worry about it. We're just going to make sure that they get A's and B's, and we're going to handle it from here. But we do need you as an ally during this process to work with us, and just know that our relationship is built very well. So if the parents set that up and they have an allegiance, right, an alliance with the teacher, right, then those parents who are now educators in the home system, right, can now say, look, what is needed to become successful in this environment? Structure. If you ain't used to having no structure, fam, I'm gonna need you to get that kid up at 6 a.m. Go ahead and get them dressed like they were going to real school, for real. Get them situated. Have a little thing in the background right here, like the little thing that says first period, second period, third period, fourth period, fifth period, whatever, right? Have that structure set in place. Have them take breaks. Have them take lunch, right? Sit them at a little table. They got lunch right there. You know what I'm saying? And then at the end of the day, if they're in elementary school, they got recess, right? And at the end of the day, bell rings, bam, they out of school, but they inside the house. Now they got homework, assign them their homework, and make sure that they're doing it. So to become successful and build an ecosystem around success educationally, the parent needs to work with the educator. I'm talking about, it ain't an option, fam. You need to work with the educator to make sure that kid is doing what they need to do. You need to check on your student and make sure they're getting their homework done. I always have a rule. If you come into your kid's room and they haven't done their homework, and I'm saying not one problem missed. If they missed a problem, then they need to go back, and two things gonna happen. Either one, they gonna call or email the teacher to figure out why they couldn't do that one last problem. They're gonna get on the phone to one of their peers and figure out how they can get help on that problem. Or guess what? You gonna do it as a parent. And if you can't do it, you better find out how to do it, right? And so for outliers of that, we're the people that people are gonna call, right? If the parent can't do it and they struggle, they know that they know damn well they can't do calculus too, then guess what? Then they're gonna call us to come help with it, and we'll go ahead and take care of that, right? But we don't want to leave an excuse on the table saying, well, you know what? Listen, I couldn't help. I always hear it all the time. I can't help my kid. I can't help my kid. I can't help my kid. Okay, but if you can't help your kid, what are you doing about it? Well, I'm not doing anything about it. Okay, well, you need to hire a tutor. Then the conversation becomes, oh, well, if I hire a tutor, then I got to get money out the household. Then it takes away from money out the household. I can't afford it. Well, ma'am or sir, you got two choices: help your student or watch them fail. Which one you gonna choose? If you watch them fail, you're gonna have to spend more money to send them to summer school, right? You got to pay for that. You're gonna have to pay for scholarships. I mean, you're gonna have to pay for school and university schools because they couldn't get scholarship because they didn't make the grades. So you either make the decision today to get them tutored, or you watch the repercussions of that later on down the line. Now, me personally, I was blessed. I didn't have student loans. I got $385,000 worth of scholarship money because of my academics and my pure brain. to make sure that I got what I needed. And I promised my parents, one thing I promised when I graduated, I said, y'all will not have to pay for my school. And I kept true to that promise. And so, you know, we have families and households in the Black and brown community, and this might piss some people off, but I don't care, right? You said, look, this is the George Dandridge show. I'm going to go on ahead and make it happen. Y'all, there's parents out here that won't get their kids tutoring, but you're going to spend $400, $500, $600 on some damn Jordans. You're gonna spend $300, $400, $500 on a Gucci bag or a Louis Vuitton to do what? Impress people who don't care about you no way? But your kid is sitting over there struggling. They can't get their grades. You need to rethink how you address your students' education, and then now wonder why they act like they act in school. They reciprocate the things that they see at home. Now they're out there, you know, doing the busted challenge, right? Because they don't know no better, because they've been taught, not necessarily saying the parents are teaching them this, but that they've been taught by media, right? By TV, media, social media, all that stuff, all these things that go in their brain. But what doesn't go into their brain is how to be excellent in school, how to provide excellence to themselves so they can get out there and become successful. If we can solve those problems, we'll have better outcomes.
And I think that ties right back into the question, and it assigns the accountability, which is that one thing that most people don't want to deal with, you know, is that self-accountability component. Because like you said, you know, I see all the time where people will swear their why is their kids. Oh, my kid's not going to want for nothing. My kid's this, that, kid's that. And at the end of that, or the flip side of that, is the investment priority is skewered. You know, it's skewed to pleasing their eye versus conditioning their minds. Teaching work ethic, structure, as you mentioned, those things I'm finding are becoming really just things of the past. Like, nobody's talking about or dealing with that anymore. Television by design, and now internet is largely raising children, you know, in this day and age. And what I find, and this to me takes this removes all the excuses as far as I'm concerned, you know, when it comes to things such as affordability. You know, hey, look, everybody has choices. Okay. I'm not going to judge you for your choice, but don't look for empathy for the consequence to a choice you made. That's part one. Exactly. Part two is, in this information age, everybody has one of these $1,500 paperweights, you know, and information is the new currency, and you have access, but you're not using it. You're Googling a celebrity's net worth, or Googling a challenge or something like that, when you have, like, you know, the days of lack of access to information. You still may have lack of resources due to systemics and other different things like that, but the access to information, that excuse is null and void. You know, the hardest part now is only finding, figuring out where to get the information or whatever. So I think that part is null and void. I've been enjoying this conversation with you, and but I know you have some things on the plate. But there's a couple things that we wanted to run past you and get your take on. Within education, are we doing a disservice in the education system by overlooking, or I don't know if it's overlooking, neglecting, or shunning blue-collar trades and its impact on the economy and on households, you know, as it relates to building the community? I mean, I feel like as a community, we really have everything we need. We just haven't figured out or mastered how to internally use it cohesively yet. Right. But for the last 30 or more years, we've seen less and less and less of trade type things taught in school. We never really saw the financial literacy piece other than, hey, here's the stock market, here's how to balance a checkbook. Do anybody even use checks anymore? So, but the principles are the same. I understand that, but hey, like you said, we can get into some deeper things, but is there a valid place to say, because, when you talk about everyone is created equal, I believe that to the extent that there's 24 hours in the day, everybody's blessed with those 24 hours. Outside of that, though, the reality is everybody has a God-given gift.
Right.
And you will not be as successful as someone else at their gift. I have a cousin, shout out to William Hemphill, who has a very, very similar background to yours. Graduated high school at 16, went on to Georgia Tech, accelerated in math, got an engineering degree, figured out later, I don't like this. I'm just good at it. That's not what I like, and chose another path or whatever. But it took him to have to become an adult and go through some trials and tribulations to understand, hey, this is not where I want to go or whatever. I think too often we're dictating paths to people, specifically kids, without the allowance of recognizing the gift. You spoke to the situation about scholarships. And what I've seen is parents literally invest thousands into sports development and athletic gear and camps and this and that. Mm-hmm. At the thought of a scholarship, even sometimes in denial that, hey, your kid sucks. This is not their lane, and they're $6,000 in before they accept that their kid just really doesn't want to do this, and
they're in league sports. They're in league sports doing that mess. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. And this is $5, $6, $7,000 you could have put into a 529 plan or tutoring plan to enhance their grades to, get those scholarships. But back to the original question, everybody is not designed for higher education. And if we're being honest, there's some higher education that should take place at a lower level. Some college things are just like, hey, yeah, no, this should have been like 7th, 8th grade, but are we really like overlooking the trades? Because, like you said, that development of technology, still, when you get right down to it, one day somebody has to turn the screwdriver.
Right. I think trades became real popular. I'm not even gonna say real popular. I would say trades became a thing, if you will, probably about 2 years ago. Really, is when it really started. Kind of like, what is the transition point between going to school and finding a trade where we can make some money? Right, in the early days, right, probably before I was even born in my millennial capacity. But I want to say this is that people were like, hey, the people that work at the tech companies, right, or like a Facebook and Amazon or a Microsoft or a Google or whatever, or Netflix, those are the individuals who make the bread in tech and in the white collar side. But the blue collar side are the ones that get kind of like, mistreated when you're dating somebody. It's like, what do you do for work? And it's like, oh, I'm a plumber. And it's like, a plumber, like, what is that? You know what I mean? Like, versus I'm a doctor or I'm an attorney or whatever, right? So back in the day when those things were looked, and back in the day when we were, my black and brown people, those were the things that we was working on, right? Back then, trying to come up. We didn't have access to the education opportunities to get us to the white collar side. But now I feel like it's almost in 2021 or going into 2021, because I know we just started it, but I feel like it's going flip in a sense. I feel like now, because the trade that you're trying to do is making as much money and or sometimes more than a white collar situation. You're putting in more hours, maybe getting paid hourly. You're putting in that overtime where you're completing these jobs and these contracts or getting government contracts or whatever it may be. You're making the money to get there. So I don't say, and back in the day, I'm just going to be honest. I was one of those kind of people that was like, man, I don't think I want to do anything blue collar. I just want to just go on and do something that makes sense, right? For me, from a white collar perspective, because that's what I saw was the best route to go, right?
Well, and the other part to that, though, like myself, I figured out as a kid, between some summers cutting grass and picking up trash, that, hey, this ain't my bag, and it wasn't even about the money part of it. It was as simple, I don't like this. I don't like elements. But when you put that other component to it, case in point, it's funny that you mentioned plumbers. I have a client that is a plumber, but he owns his own business. He's doing about $300,000 a year is about what he's clearing or whatever, built a nice company. I have a few clients that are roofers. So here's the thing, I don't think anybody white collar should begrudge those people, because here's the other side of it. And this is the place where people fail to understand my whole minimum wage concept, because again, everybody has choices, but here's some things that's not going to happen. If something breaks in my bathroom right now or whatever, I might be able to figure it out and do it myself. But guess what's not going to happen? I'm not even trying to do that. I'm calling a plumber because I don't want to do it.
Right, right.
And so saying that, to go back to the choice standpoint, I think we ought to, do we not have an obligation to create the opportunities on both sides, or develop the opportunity for both pathways so that a young person can choose? I mean, shouldn't we trust 16, 17, 18-year-old with that decision if we're trusting them to make a sometimes six-figure decision about facility of choice for education and a career map that they have no experience in? Like somebody like, I want to be a lawyer. How you know?
Right. I mean, I think the whole, you talked about passion and figuring out a gift. One thing that people miss is, what is your gift? Data point, once again, 85% of people in the United States and almost in this earth, they walk around not knowing why they were put on earth. The moment you find out what you were put on earth for is the year that your life begins, right? The moment your life begins. It took me 10 years to find out God was like, you need to be in education. And I was like, what? And it was like, poof, he was disappeared. And I was like, okay, I guess I got to figure out the rest. But because I found that gift, here I am now with the top Black-owned tutoring company in the United States. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't know I was going that route. So case in point, finding your gift and your passion is highly imperative, and you better not die before you find it out, because that's where you're going to be able to see the fruition of why you're here and who and how you're going to impact the world. Because we don't know that as mortals, as people. We just know we just got here. Hell, I don't know why I'm here. But when God tells you that, and he's able to put that in full scale, now you know, right? But now you have on social media, what fight do you always see? Hey, well, it's always a fight against the entrepreneurs and the 9-to-5s. Okay, right. Then that's a day. Oh, that's a current fight right now. We see posts about that every week.
Every day.
9-to-5 entrepreneurs. The 9-to-5ers are like, hey, I'm doing pretty good at my job and I got, an investment portfolio. The entrepreneurs are like, well, so you still have the flexibility to do what you want every day and you still not making as much as we are. Then entrepreneurs are like, well, we can invest in stock too and do all these great things, but we can make more money than you because in the 9-to-5, you still have a cap. Entrepreneurs, we don't have no cap. So it's so much of this going on that people don't know which route to choose. Do they choose 9 to 5? Do they choose entrepreneur? Do they choose both? Do they become, do they do gigs? Are they a gig worker? So it just depends on what you're put on earth to do, what your passion is, and which lane you're gonna choose. If you're 9 to 5, great, and that works for you, fantastic. If entrepreneurship works for you, fantastic. But whatever lane you choose, you need to make sure you're doing what God told you to do, and you're building a legacy for whoever comes after you. And that's really all that comes down to it.
And I think the source of that argument really is inner projecting, because if we're being honest, it's just a numerical fact. 20% of the people make 80% of the money. Yet online, the entrepreneurs are trying to make it look like, hey, every day is glory and rainbows and unicorns and everything. And that is not the case. First of all, and the second part of that is for the 9 to 5ers. Like, I don't begrudge any 9 to 5er or whatever. The biggest regret I have in life is allowing people who came before me or who influenced me to not let it all hang out until much later. I knew at 13 I was supposed to be an entrepreneur or whatever, and I allowed myself to stay in the workforce for 22 years, begrudgingly. And so the only issue I ever have with any 9 to 5er is the one who isn't happy. If you go to work and you love your job, case in point, educators, most educators, I can count on one hand with a few fingers missing the number of educators that I've met that don't like their job. And usually if they don't, it's usually more so about some external factor than the job itself or what have you. But if you're in any situation, be it job, relationship, entrepreneur, whatever it is, any situation that perpetuates a degree of unhappiness is one you should evaluate and consider exiting. So, for the 9 to 5ers, if you're happy, generally happy, because let's be honest, one of the hardest things, especially for new entrepreneurs, to do is the self-structure that comes with that freedom. Yeah, you can kind of move around how you want to, but at the end of the day, you have to get results. And if you don't have the discipline to do that, don't get in this space. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I tell you that all the time, man. I'm like, if you are not ready to become an entrepreneur, man, don't do it. Listen to this data point again. Less than 10%, right, of Black-owned business. This is crazy, but less than 10% of Black-owned businesses. I'm sorry, not 10%. Less than 5% of Black-owned businesses ever make $1 million in their company as an entrepreneur in earned revenue. Less than 10% of Black-owned businesses have employees, meaning that they have 1099s or they are an actual employee of their company. Most Black-owned businesses are sole proprietorships, and it's them by themselves. So when you look at that and you look at scale, you may not want to scale. People may not want to scale. So it's fine being a sole prop. That's no big deal there. But if you do want to scale and you want to get bigger and do things, you're going to have to hire at some point. And the fact that we don't get as much funding or as much revenue because we're not full scale corporations or S corps or whatever you decide your designation is that fits your business, we can't do those things unless we accept the fact that we're going to have to grow and scale. But I found that data point so amazing to the point I'm like, damn, I didn't know that, that most of our businesses are sole proprietors and we don't have no employees. I didn't know that, and for me, I'm like, well, how people like how that? I'm looking back at myself like, how the hell did I get 100 and some people on this team? You know what I mean? And
that's why I asked you that at the top of the hour, because it's one of those things that is so overlooked. I don't think people have a clear plan when they go into business. There's this hypertrophy of, I'm going to open a business today, I'll be a millionaire tomorrow, and then that grind gets real or whatever. And, this is also my side of an argument when it comes to the employee versus the entrepreneur as it relates to pay caps is simply this. Employees, generally speaking, have nothing at risk but their time. You have an exact contracted exchange for time and rate. The entrepreneur has everything at risk, and win, lose, or draw, fail, succeed, or whatever, at the end of the day, it comes down to them. So there's always kind of a solopreneur mindset, but I make people cautious of this when they start the, I guess, quote unquote, side hustle or gig type of thing and want to, associate that with, hey, I'm a business owner. It's like, no, there's some more to that. But speaking to something you spoke to earlier regarding the zoning and the impact on community and the funding and the things of that nature, this is a data point that ties right into that, because if, as a business owner, you do not scale and you do not employ, because understand that employment stimulates the economy that you're employing. It's all full circle, and it all comes right. And it also creates a dynamic that allows you, and this is something that, maybe I'm wrong on this. I don't have any data to substantiate it. It's just my feeling. I don't believe that a person who is constantly working in their business has that total freedom, because when you do, you're able to give back in a way that's not monetary. Most people hear the term give back and they immediately assume it's about money. And let's be honest, in our community, we judge celebrities, millionaires, etc., about, well, they did this. Oh, they should do this. They got this much money or whatever. And we never consider the fact that most of those people we're talking about are, to large degrees, employees, high-paid employees, but employees nonetheless. What about the people that's signing their checks? What are they giving? But that's over there. My point being is that it comes full circle. Like you just mentioned, you have in excess of 100 employees right now. This is an impact. Let's assume they all live in different zip codes or whatever. You're impacting 100 communities. The passion, knowledge, and funding you pour into these people are going out 100 places and duplicating itself. That's the real impact. I'm stop. I ain't gonna preach today.
Look, I noticed it the other day, and I was just looking at some numbers, and I was like, oh my gosh, we pay, and I'm always transparent. I'm like, look, y'all gonna see this journey. We have paid our 1099. We have paid our contractors last year, man, over $200,000, $220,000, I think it was, something like that. That means we impacted the economy. We paid people that much money last year that were able to do what? Take care of their kids, families, pay their car notes, pay their mortgages, their apartment rent, whatever, school loan, whatever it is. Yeah, we made impact with students, but on the flip side, we made impact in lives. Mm-hmm. And I was able to take a concept about really helping students and put it into people's pockets at the end of the day, and now they can go out and do better things. I had people yesterday in our meeting that was like, "Man, I'm trying to make $2,000 a month, in tutoring." Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, needless to say, when I look back at the overall impact, I'm just like, damn, man, we've impacted over 11,000 students. We put $220,000 into people's pockets last year. We got 100 and something people on the team. We're mentoring all the students that we tutor. We are, making change in ways that nobody else does. Like, this is a total ecosystem being an entrepreneur, and it's not for the light at heart. This is not peaches and cream thing, man. I'm not gonna lie. Look, I be thinking about closing down Inc. Education all the time because
let me find the rewind button. let me get that one again, because everybody's gonna, there's two people in the audience right now. One is saying, "Oh, well, he should pay people a lot more," and the other one is saying, "Well, he don't understand what I'm going through or whatever. He was a whiz kid or whatever, and he just had it like that."
Look, I'm saying it's not an easy road, right? And by the way, I've been in the corporate world. I worked at Microsoft. I worked at Baylor Healthcare IT. I was the first intern in Dallas Fort Worth at Baylor Healthcare for tech, right? I worked in AT&T. I worked at T-Mobile, Verizon, all these places in the corporate sector. I was in the military. I went to the Naval Academy for part of my undergrad. And by the way, Naval Academy is one of the hardest schools in the United States, especially to get into for a person of color, right? Side note, on top of that, right?
And a lot don't finish. Let's put that out there. Everybody don't finish there.
Right. So, you go into these pathways, and I've had the luxury of having all types of different experiences. So I can appreciate, my parents were both military. They retired Air Force, 22 years, right? So I've seen it from so many different angles, and I can appreciate everybody's journey. But there's days I wanted to cry, give up. Nobody was my mentor. I had to figure stuff out by myself. No investment, no venture coming in. I mean, all of these different things to where the journey to entrepreneurship is not peachy and it's not a straight line. It's jagged as hell. And if you're not built for it and you want to give up after the first year, this road is not for you. You know what I'm saying? So we have to realize and look back at, are you in entrepreneurship for the money, or are you in entrepreneurship for your impact? Because if you're in it for the money, you're good.
This way, I'll tell people all the time, this way, you have to be in it for the outcome, not the income.
Exactly. Because if you're literally in it for the money, you will fail absurdly in this market. But if you're in it because you just love what you do and you want to create something, entrepreneurs going to be an entrepreneurship and be an entrepreneur because they want to create and solve a problem that nobody else is solving. If you go into it with that in mind, you will gain the income capacity at the end of the day, and the money will come. It may not come year one. It may not come year two. Hell, it may not even come year three, right? But by the time it does come, though, at least you put in the sweat equity to build your company in ways that you want to build your company in, right? Like I stated, the struggle is real, y'all. I'm not coming on this radio show saying shit is peachy, because it's not. I'm not gonna come here and lie to you and be like, yo, it's a good feeling every day. And I have a ton of joys. Listen, I'm tired all the time. We're talking about education and just two. Y'all, I have like 4 different things and 4 brands that I manage. It's tough to even manage them every day. I can't even get to them every day. My email inbox looks like Satan made it right now. My calendar looks like a hot mess. So I say that to say, man, it's a struggle, man. It's a struggle. Hell, I had to hire my first virtual assistant the other day because it's just too much. So whether or not you're ready for this journey or you're not ready for this journey, choose wisely, because at the end of the day, you or your family may be at stake. And if you're not ready, you're going to regret it, whichever route you choose. If you're not ready for the 9 to 5 because you don't like the constraint of going to a job, don't choose that path. If you like being an entrepreneur and you want the flexibility, but you're not used to building a company from scratch, don't go that route either. So you have to figure out really what works best for you. But I'm not going to sit on this show and tell y'all that it's all gravy, because it's not. You just have to have a love for it. You just have to have a love for it. That's all I can say.
Well, we know that statistically overnight success takes at least 7 years. So if you're not ready for that long haul,
right? Hell, it's 5.5 years in now. And this is last year was when we were first featured in all of the real big media. That's when we first got noticed, but we've been doing this for 5 years, right? And not that media is really a big deal, but for me, I know people that know me know what I worked hard for. They know how I started. They know that I was out there in them streets knocking door to door like this, talking about, hey, my name is Jay Veal. You know, I have a new tutoring company called Ink Tutoring, and this is what we do. This is my offering. If you like what we offer, please let me know. If you don't, please, you know, if it can be utilized for you, then please pass it to somebody who will. And I gave them my business card. I walked to the next house, did the same thing. I did that for a year, man. Ink started in south of Dallas. I'm not even from Dallas or from Texas. I'm from Northeast to LA. And I always attribute the success of the company to starting south of Dallas.
You know what's interesting is I know we were supposed to be all on education, but in my mind, this is education as well, because the nature of the show really is to highlight entrepreneurs' journey, not just the success part, but the hard times. And you pointed out something that I really think most people I don't know if they overlook it or if they're unwilling to do it. You knocked on doors. One of the guys I follow online always says, hey, get from behind the keyboard and go shake a hand. You know, it works faster or whatever. And I think so many people today are so asphyxiated with social media that they really believe that they're going to type something and the doors of income are just going to burst open.
Right.
And hey, I know it happens. There's the soldier boys and the makeup lady or whatever, those rare occurrences. But most people won't do that. And you really have to understand that, I think probably the biggest disconnect is that some entrepreneurs have led people to believe that you don't have to work as much as a 9 to 5, when real entrepreneurs know that you will work harder than you ever have in your life.
Right?
Much more than you did when you were working 40 hours.
Oh yeah, there's more hours. Yeah, listen, them 24 hours gonna become like 16, 17, and 18 hours and I'm not gonna lie. I don't have the best management of social and emotional situations. I don't have the best management of taking care of myself. Sometimes I go 2 days without eating something. There's some days that I may not sleep for a day or two because I'm working on something that has to be done. It's just not the best case scenario. Is just not all peaches and cream. And you at the end of the day, there's times you're gonna be like, man, screw this. I'm going back to 9 to 5. I'm going back to corporate. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, you go back and you look at your why. For me, when I come into a situation like that and I get a text message saying, hey, Jay, what's up? I'm like, what's up, man? I got a 95 on my test, man, after tutoring. I got 105. I had somebody last week say they got 102 on their quiz after we did our tutoring. I had somebody else that just said that they made their first A on their exam that they ever made because of ink. Like, it's things like that for Black and brown students that propel me to go back and be like, damn, I want to quit, but I can't quit on that student though.
Right. And that, ladies and gentlemen, this is a true example of your why, because when it gets hard, your why is really what's going to keep you going. It has a way of self-motivating and re-energizing you every single time. And if you don't know what it is, you will throw your hands up. You will inevitably quit.
Because at the end of the day, if we shut down, that is thousands of students or hundreds of students who now won't have the impact, will now not be able to get the grade.
The next 11,000 won't have the opportunity.
Exactly.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have a student, and this is 3 parts really. One, if you are truly vested in your child's success, because even if they're, getting some B's and things and doing fairly well, they can have that reinforcement. Jay's websites are located on the bottom of the screen. 2, and this is a real thing, intentionally didn't spend too much time on this point because I wanted to just have it have its impact and move on. But if you know that you are at your breaking point, if you are struggling emotionally, trying to work with your kid, if this is, if the material placed before you and you haven't seen in 10, 15 years and you can't get across to it to make it happen or what have you. And last but not least, if you want to consider a different path to ensuring a scholarship than the limited athletic route that we so passionately want to force our kids into, Jay Veal is the guy. His company, Black Tutors of Social Media, Inc. Education, will get your student there. Visit him online and make the decision to make that change. Jay, anything you want to leave everybody with?
I would just say this, on the education side, y'all, this is a real struggle and situation we have right now with the pandemic, since March, and it's going on a year now. And so those that are educators out there, if you're in the classroom and you're teaching our students and our Black and brown babies out there, right, really go into that classroom. I'm not going to the classroom because, well, if you're able to go in the classroom, I'll say that. Or if you're online doing your teaching thing, go out there and really kill it. Don't just go in the classroom and teach something, but become a steward of your craft and fall in love with what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, somebody's, or parent, a family's kid is in your hands. And while they're in your hands, you have to mold those students into something that they believe in themselves. And the only way they're going to do that is for you to put all that energy into building and developing that student in pathways where they need to go. So if you're in education, please do that. If you're a parent, don't give up on your kid, but really understand the social and emotional situations they're going through right now, because they can't communicate with their kids and have a normal life when it comes to social, right? Be positive with them. Be patient with them, but most importantly, check on them, right? Check on their well-being and check and make sure that they're getting their work done. If they have any struggles with their content or their work, definitely please reach out to me, or reach out to us, and really ensure that your kid is going to have the best foot forward for 2021. I don't want to see any Black and brown. If you are watching this and you're on social media, on Facebook or wherever you're at, and you were looking for a Black-owned tutoring company or a Black-owned education brand or whatever the case may be, now you found one. Don't let this year be the year you make an excuse as to why your student couldn't get the support that they needed, because you see that solution right now in front of you. We're here. We're all over the nation. There's 105 of us in 5 cities. We're doing things online. We're making things happen for these students. And if you really need anything, definitely let us know. If you're on Clubhouse, I am on Clubhouse as well. I do a lot of rooms on education and business stuff, credit, financial literacy, all those kinds of things. But definitely let us know. More importantly, for the entrepreneurs out there, don't give up. The journey is going to always be tough. I'm going to tell you that right now. It's always going to be tough. But if you really look at your why, it'll bring you back to your passion and what you're going to deliver, whether it be a product or a service. You're doing that for somebody else. You're creating jobs. You're making impact. And at the end of the day, if you found your why and you got that passion, it probably came from God, and you're doing that because God told you to do it. And we all want to make sure we're doing what he told us to do. So I don't know whoever's out there is religious or not. If you're not religious, no big deal. If you are religious, God is the one that told you to do that. So you need to follow it. So y'all hit me up if you want to on Facebook. Just search my name. You can Google the name, Google the company, Twitter at Inc. Education LLC, or Black Tutors of SM on LinkedIn. You can just search my name as well. And on Instagram, it's at Inc. At Inc. CEO the tutor, at Black Tutors of social media, or at the Jay Veal brand. And as like you see on the bottom of the screen, those are the two websites as well that you can reach out. So I appreciate George for having me on this show. And if y'all need anything, just definitely reach out. Let's kill it in 2021.
With the close like that, I have no more words. Again, don't forget that you still have to go to work tomorrow just because you saw Boss Talk Radio today. This was a special episode. We had to bring Jay to you guys or whatever, and we're going to let him get back out there and help just save the world with this tremendous impact on the next generation. He clearly believes children are the future, and if your future is going to be impacted, you really have to make that investment. Jay, thank you so much for spending this amount of time with us and pouring into the audience. We're going to have you back. I was talking to Sharita the other day. We're going to have you guys come on and talk about the many things y'all doing, because what if I told y'all that what y'all saw today from Jay was the tip of the iceberg? The brother runs deep. You saw the tip of the iceberg, and we had Sharita on a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to bring them back together to talk about some of the amazing things that these guys are doing. So,
George, George, they not ready. They're
not ready?
That's some heat right there, dude. They're not ready for that. I cannot wait, man. I have another radio station that said we gotta bring you back for the financial literacy and credit side. But man, listen, I'm telling you, it's gonna be awesome.
Well, what we're gonna do is and we haven't announced it yet, so here's the first prelude or whatever. We're gonna have Jay and Sharita come back on as part of the Boss 2020 episode for 2021 because we're clearly going to have to do this virtual. Yes, I was holding out, hoping the world was going to open back up. It's clearly not going to happen. So, but the benefit to that is by being able to bring this to you virtual. Our team is working on it right now. It's probably going to span a two-day time frame. And the benefit to doing it virtual is we're able to bring even more value to you guys and have a larger impact on your business and financial future. And so we're looking very forward to having you come back in and drop, gems on everybody and some of the things that you guys are doing, because y'all are truly maximizing those 24 hours, in a day. But I'm going to need you to eat, man. I need you to eat.
I know, man. I'm about to go grab a little bite in a minute before I do my next thing. So I definitely am trying to get better. I'm not the best yet, but I'm trying to get there.
Well, hopefully that virtual assistant can keep you in touch. Jay Veal, everybody, thanks for tuning in to Boss Talk Radio. We will see you guys tomorrow at our normal scheduled time.
All right, brother. See you soon.